Hey, what if some of life's most valuable lessons didn't have to cost you years to learn them? I've spent more than 4 decades in business and leadership, in ministry and community and entrepreneurship. Looking back, there are things that I know today that I simply could not have known earlier. They were lessons that came through success, often came through mistakes. Most of them came through experience. But here's what I've also learned: while experience is life's greatest teacher, it doesn't always have to be your experience. So today, that's what we're going to share is some lessons that I wish I understood sooner. Hey, stick around.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Schin.
Hey, welcome back to Franchise Pitfalls and Profits. On the show, we used to have a lot of conversations about franchising and growth, about business ownership. But this year has really we've been kind of transforming into a broader conversation. What I've been doing is trying to bring real life topics, but totally through the lens of a business owner. So today is one of those conversations. As I've gotten older, I've just noticed something, and it is that things I value most today aren't necessarily the things that I valued decades ago. The challenges of today aren't necessarily the challenges, the things that have challenged me 20 or 30 years ago. The things I value most today are not necessarily the things that I valued 30 years ago. Now, that's not because I'm not trying to learn. I have always been a learner. I love to read. I enjoy books. I've really been getting into podcasts and recordings of speeches, recordings of sermons. I've always been really enjoyed being around people who are very successful, and God's blessed me with introducing me into many different circles. And I've also really always enjoyed being curious, asking a lot of questions, embarrass the crap out of my kids at times. But hey, I like to get to know people. I like to know what makes them tick. I like to learn in all different settings. But experience, I think, also has a way of teaching us lessons that information alone cannot teach us. You can read about leadership, but leading people teaches leadership differently. Wow, leadership has been a huge issue for many of our clients these days. In our franchise consulting business, a lot of it about their franchisees not really having the leadership and the hiring and the firing and the mentoring skill sets. But that's maybe for another podcast. You can read about marriage, but I can tell you, after 48 years, being married teaches you more about marriage and teaches it differently. You can read about being a parent, raising children. But again, actually having them and raising them is just different. You read about business ownership. Again, this is a business ownership, franchise ownership podcast, but signing the front of a paycheck instead of the back of a paycheck teaches business ownership differently. Experience has a way of turning information into greater perspective. And when I look back over my years, there are things that I know now that I simply didn't know and probably couldn't have known them before. But there's a lesson in that I'm sharing with you that I really want you to hear. And it's this truth. While experience is life's greatest teacher, it doesn't always have to be your experience. Lessons can be borrowed. Lessons can be accelerated. Some lessons can be learned from mentors, coaches, advisors, parents, grandparents, friends. people who have already walked the road ahead of you. And that's one of the reasons I believe relationships matter so much. It's why I wrote the book, Can You Relate, which is now available on Amazon. Just search on Amazon, Don Schin. This allows us to borrow perspective we have not really earned yet. And it's okay. The world is okay with that. And I encourage you to do that, to seek out advisors and mentors and coaches. That's really the point of today's podcast and today's conversation. Some of life's most important lessons are learned through experience, but it always does not have to always be your personal experience. So, hey, I think there are 6 things, 6 keys about this that I really wanted to go over. So are you ready to start? Let's get going. The first one is that growth doesn't solve problems. Growth doesn't solve problems. For a lot of my career, growth was always the goal. More customers, get more revenue, get more locations, find more opportunities, just more growth, more growth, more growth. Don't get me wrong. Growth matters. Growth can be a good thing, but it really doesn't solve the number of problems as much as people think. Actually, growth exposes problems. Weaker systems become weaker. Leadership becomes more visible. Leadership challenges or issues or gaps in your skill sets. Communication breaks down. It becomes more obvious the need for better communication. Just had that conversation with the director of a nonprofit that I'm involved in. Cultural problems just are harder to ignore and must be dealt with as your company or as your organization grows. I've watched a lot of business owners believe that if they could just get bigger, just hit this next level, things were just going to get easier. Sometimes they got bigger and things got harder because the problem wasn't size. The problem was underneath the size. Excuse me, just a second. The point is that growth is really kind of a magnifying glass or putting your business under a microscope. It's really going to reveal what already exists. And I know that now. So I'm advising our clients to really be asking a lot better questions as they set their targets and set their goals on growth. I'm talking to founders all the time, founders of businesses. And this is something that I'm just really, really seeing. Many franchise brands that I've talked to over the years, they've already franchised and they're seeing their weaknesses structurally that they didn't think much about. And they're seeing it after they've only gotten 3 or 4 or 5 franchise partners on board. That is a small number in the grand scheme of thing. What does McDonald's have? Thousands. Subway has like 5,000 or 6,000 stores open. But these smaller founders, smaller emerging brands, when we go beyond what the initial franchise partners that they brought on board, they start to see the weak points and its architecture, its structure. They're starting to see some of the hairline fractures or cracks. It's really why we developed 2 very specific programs really before a franchisor really gets too far along, or in actuality, ideally, before the business ever actually sells a franchise. Our 2 programs are our business MRI, and then we also have created a predictability scorecard assessment. We're trying to get at the potential challenges of the architecture, because when you're starting a franchise, you're growing a system. And so while we always think, oh, it's a franchise, so their systems must be great, the reality is, again, these emerging brands don't often understand exactly what the structure needs to look like to carry the weight of 30 or 40 or 50 franchisees. They barely are holding together when they've got 3 or 4 or 5. So the business MRI and the predictability scorecard assessment, depending on where you are in your stage, in your growth, in your phases, how far along you are on franchising, 1 or 2 of these will help you save an enormous amount of time and save you money if you look at your business through these 2 tools. Anyway, not here trying to sell you these tools, but if you're thinking of franchising your business, these are really ideal. Okay, a second key here is that more opportunity isn't always better. When I was younger, I thought opportunities, hey, this is exciting. Every opportunity has possibility. I was even taught early on in my entrepreneurial days to say yes to everything and then figure out how to get it going and how to do it. So I said yes to a lot of things. Some were good, some were great, and some probably I should have said no. What I know now is that every opportunity comes attached with it responsibility. Yes costs something. It costs time, it can cost energy, cost you your focus. And the older I get, the more I just have come to grips with and realize that success is often less about choosing what to pursue and much more about choosing what not to pursue. So think about that as you actually look at opportunities. Are there clearly things you should not be doing because it's taking you away from what you do best? Takes you. We're talking about that at the nonprofit. We're looking at an organization for the next 10 years, and we're talking about what got us here won't get us there, and what things do we do extremely well, and what things maybe should we partner with someone and have them do it in a partnership, or just give it to them now. So anyway, meaningful life isn't built by saying yes to everything either. It's built by saying yes to what matters the most. Personally, I think those yeses should be more around people than projects, people than things. I think real legacy is not what you leave behind when you've passed. I think it's really how you live when you're here. Experience has taught me that. And if you're fortunate enough to listen to people who have already learned it, maybe you can learn something a little bit sooner than if you just had to do it all yourself. All right, third thing, hard work is necessary, but it's not sufficient. I've always believed in hard work. I still do. I'll tell you my story about my first job. I worked for the same company that my mother did. My mother was a very quiet woman, about 5 foot tall, shy. But we worked for the same company, and she put the fear of God in me by telling me that if I didn't give 120%, I was going to get fired. How about that for setting your RAS? Nobody accidentally builds something worthwhile. Nobody accidentally becomes a strong leader. We don't accidentally have impact on people. Hard work does matter. Honestly, I get that. But here's what I know now. Hard work by itself isn't enough. We had a client in South Carolina that we were working with, and he was a veteran, and he just worked his tail off. And in a franchise concept, to hit $1 million in your single franchise unit is a really, really big deal. He hit $1 million in his very first year, and he lost over $100,000. So that was all because of hard work that put that top line where it was. But in and of itself, he wasn't doing what was ultimately most important in a business, and that is making a profit. So I have watched people work incredibly hard in corporate America. when they're getting a paycheck and they're climbing the ladder. And they did it for years and then suddenly realized when they got to the top of the ladder, holy moly, I'm on the wrong wall. I've put my ladder up against the wrong wall. I've watched leaders work hard while sacrificing more important relationships. When I was still in the corporate world, I remember the executives that were in the positions that I were aspiring to, the corporate vice president level, the president of the Fortune 500 company, the CEO. And I don't remember exact numbers, but I think close to 85 or 90% of them were divorced. A third of them were on like their third marriages. So I've watched people achieve things only to discover that they weren't fulfilled and that those were not the things that mattered. And they were surprised after committing that much of their life. So hard work matters, but so does purpose. So does the direction of your life. So does the direction of your business. So does wisdom. So does your character. So the question shouldn't simply be how hard are you working or going to work as you're considering maybe some new venture or new thing for your company or your career. The question should really be whether the effort is moving you toward what matters most. Is it moving you toward what matters most? All right, let's move to number 4. And this is what I talk about. Success answers fewer questions than we think it will. And this might be the biggest revelation that I can share with you, the biggest lesson maybe of all. When we're younger, we often believe success is just going to answer all the questions of life. Or when we're wealthy, enough, that we can now focus on, the more important things and the bigger questions and issues in life. If I can just get there, if I can just achieve this, if I can just build enough, if I can just accomplish enough, then everything else is just going to naturally make sense and fall in place. But what I know now is that success answers very few of life's deepest questions. In fact, some of the most important questions don't even appear until after you've reached those levels that you've so much worked for and how hard you've worked for. I think the bigger questions that hit then and that we should really be considering at all times is what really matters, what is enough and what isn't enough. What am I building? Companies surveys have been done that consumers want to buy from businesses that are about more than just the delivery of their service or their profit or their product. They want to deal with companies that are about more than just profitability. So what are you building? What are you doing? A big one. What kind of person are you becoming? What do you want people to remember you as or by? Success can provide you resources because that's what we're thinking. We're going to have the resources. Success gives you different opportunities. I get phone calls to do different kinds of speaking opportunities or share my wisdom and my knowledge with different organizations. Success creates options, but it can't create purpose. And when I look back, I wish that I had understood that earlier. Fortunately, there were people in my life who were further down the road than I was. Their perspective helped me see things that I couldn't see myself. And that's one of the gifts, I think, of mentors, advisors, good friends that are older than you, coaches, life and business coaches. And as I have been sharing, again, some of life's most important lessons are learned through experience, but it doesn't always have to be your own experience. All right, the 5th one I want to talk about is relationships matter more than achievements. When I was younger, accomplishments impressed me. Titles impressed me. Awards, trophies impressed me. Hey, do you want to know where all of my trophies and plaques are today? So do I. I don't have any idea where they are. So recognition used to impress me, but again, today, none of these things really mean that much. Today, I pay much more attention to very different things. I look at how does somebody treat someone, particularly someone who can't do anything in return for them. How do they lead? Are they a servant leader? Whether it's in a leadership role or just their personal life, do they have a serve others mindset? Do they put others ahead of themselves? It's often been said that you really know a person's priorities. You really know what matters most to someone by looking at their bank account and by looking at their calendar or their schedules. Does their family respect them? I've seen many cases where the breadwinner of the family is over here doing all of this stuff, and they have no clue how their family actually sees them and what they think of them. How about their faith, their spirituality, their faith, their beliefs? Are they intact through the challenges of life and over time? It's very easy to drift. I just spoke to a Christian men's group the other weekend, and this is a big thing that I talked about. Someone is always watching, and we've become fans of God or fans of Jesus. We've drifted off the playing field. Again, I've been around a lot of successful people, and to know that achievement and significance and impact are not the same thing. Achievement is about what we accomplish. Significance is about who we impact and what change we can make. At the end of life, surveys have been done, and the surveys show that most people didn't wish that they'd attended another meeting, didn't wish that they'd worked more hours. They aren't glad that they didn't try something new. They regretted not trying something new. Experience has a way of clarifying these things, and I would encourage you not to wait until the end of life, because you'll end up, honestly, with probably more regrets than you really would like to have. All right, so we've covered a number of different things. I have one more to do. We've talked about growth doesn't solve problems. We've talked that opportunities aren't necessarily, more opportunities are not necessarily better. We've talked about hard work is necessary, but it isn't the catch-all. It isn't sufficient. We've talked about success answers fewer questions than we think, and there are other deeper questions you want to grasp early on. We talked about relationships matter more than achievements. And so the last thing I wanted to leave with you is to always stay teachable. Be coachable for your entire life. Perhaps the biggest surprise of getting older is realizing how much I still have to learn. When you're younger, confidence just drives you to, confidence is your certainty. As we age, confidence kind of comes from humility, not knowing that I'm not a know-it-all anymore. You realize that you don't know everything, and you realize there are perspectives in life that you haven't considered. You realize there are lessons ahead of you. I've come to think of life and opinions and perspectives like half a dozen people sitting around a globe. And if we go around, we are all looking at the same situation, but we all have a little bit of a different look at it. We have a different framing and framework of it. And so as I get older, as I said, I'm just realizing there are other valid perspectives that I need to get my arms around, and I need to realize, and I need to respect. There's lessons I can learn from some of those. And interestingly, I think the people that I admire the most in life today aren't always the smartest people in the room. They are the learners. They are the people that are most coachable and most teachable. They're curious. They're humble. They are still learning. They are still growing. They still ask a lot of questions. And they recognize that wisdom alone isn't your arrival point. Wisdom is remaining teachable. Wisdom is remaining teachable. All right. So I want to wrap things up. I want to kind of close with just kind of wrapping things up. We went a little long today. Thank you for sticking with me. If there's one thing that I hope that you've taken away from today's conversation, it's this: some of life's most important lessons are learned only through experience, but it doesn't always mean that it has to be your own personal experience. So as I look back, there are many, many things I know now that I didn't know then, lessons that took years, but tap into the people that are ahead of you, tap into coaches and consultants and advisors and friends and siblings and parents. Tap into those, because it's okay to borrow the lesson and apply the lesson. Someone who's already walked down the road that you are about to travel on. And again, one of the smartest decisions I think we can make is to learn from those people who have already gone down the road. Again, life's most important lessons are learned through experience. However, it does not always mean it has to be your own individual experience. Hey, I'm really appreciative of you hanging in. We went a little bit longer than we've been going. I appreciate you. If you like the episode, please like it. Please subscribe if you're not already one of the 11,000 subscribers that we have. And until next week, I hope you have a great week.